6 o'clock on Thursday, May 11th, 2017. Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Ora News, where we bring you today's top stories, translated into English, every weeknight. The Commissioner for Enlargement, Johannes Hahn, has written a letter to Albanian citizens expressing his concern over the political situation. In his letter, the EU Commissioner says that the European representatives made all the effort to promote dialogue between the party, but no agreement was reached and that the elections will be held without the opposition. The letter reads, "Dear citizens of Albania, dear friends, it is with great concern that I address you today. In the course of the past few weeks, several attempts have been made to promote dialogue amongst politician parties in Albania by representatives from the EU, including myself, and by other international partners. We have carefully listened to concerns and expectations from all sides while trying to facilitate a solution of the ongoing crisis. A number of options were offered with the hope that parties and leaders live up to their responsibility to find a joint solution. Unfortunately, this was not the case. So today, we are in a situation where the electoral process for the general elections on June 18th has been set in motion. The elections will take place without the participation of the main opposition parties. It was the deliberate choice by the current opposition not to run for elections. I have to respect, but at the same time deeply regret, this decision from a democratic point of view. Albanians request and deserve elections that provide a broad political offer and uphold electoral standards. However, the Democratic Party must continue, even if some decide to stay behind. Democracy and democratic standards shall not be held back by boycotting institutions and democratic elections. The elections will be assessed on their own merit, based on international standards. The elections will be assessed on their own merit based on international standards. The most competent European institutions for observing elections, ODIHR, has recently launched its election observation activities in Albania. Therefore, let me also be clear on one thing. I strongly condemn any announcements to call for actions that would undermine each citizen's right to vote and other fundamental freedoms. Such actions cannot be justified and are not comparable with European Union standards. On the contrary, it is a fundamental European value that political ideas and proposals, no matter whether you like them or not, are being discussed within the democratic institutions, notably the Albanian Parliament. This has been stressed in all the meetings with the political leaders of your country from all sides. In this regard, let me also say one thing. The fact that by-elections in Kavaja could not take place is not a victory for anyone. It is a clear loss for democracy. Dear citizens, I have full confidence that the people of Albania will demand from their political leaders to demonstrate the restraint and democratic maturity expected in a country that aspires to be a member of the EU. Let's be clear. Leaders will be held accountable if they try to derail the legitimate aspirations of the Albanian people for a better future. The EU will follow and monitor closely the electoral process. And even more fundamentally, we will continue supporting you on the path towards EU membership. A day after the visit of the U.S. delegation in Albania, the U.S. Embassy has issued a statement about the message the Congressmen gave in their meetings with political leaders. The letter reads, "A delegation of members of the U.S. House of Representatives, led by Congressman Bob Goodlatte, visited Albania on Wednesday, where they highlighted the U.S.-Albania strategic partnership, the importance of the country's judicial reform, and the regional issues. Representatives Steve King, Matt Gaetz, Dave Trott, David Cicilline, and Peter DeFazio joined Goodlatte, who served as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, in meetings with President Bujar Nishani, President-elect Ilir Meta, Foreign Minister Ditmir Bushati, and opposition leader Lulzim Basha. The members of the delegation urged all parties to come together and work out their differences and continue the hard work of democracy. They stressed the importance of implementing judicial reform, strengthening the rule of law, and also emphasized the importance of parties participating in the democratic process." Today, the Electoral College selected 5 judges who will review the opposition's appeal against the list of candidates registered to the Central Election Commission on June and April 29th. The opposition's request was filed by the Agrarian Party as the only opposition party that is registered for the June 18th elections. Meanwhile, the majority and the opposition are interested parties in this process. The Electoral College drew many times for the election of 5 members who will review the opposition's request. The opposition insists that the political party's list of candidates have been submitted out of the legal deadline, claiming that the deadline for the parties is to register the candidates list was the midnight of April 28th and not 29th. The Agrarian Party was registered to the CEC for June 18th elections, but it later filed a request to deregister, and it did not present the list of its candidates for members of parliament. The chairman of the Central Election Commission reacted today to the opposition's appeal, saying that the Agrarian Party has no right to appeal, as it is not registered as an electoral subject because it has not presented a list of candidates. The Electoral College will review the opposition's appeal on May 18th. The reasoning of the chairman of the CEC was rejected by the Democrat MP, Bulukbashi, who says that the Agrarian Party is an electoral subject that is registered to the Central Election Commission according to Article 64 of Electoral Code. Mr. Bulukbashi says that the Agrarian Party is registered to the CEC. It is an electoral subject and it has the rights to appeal. On the 83rd day of the opposition's protest, the former Prime Minister, Sali Berisha, asked the Prime Minister to withdraw from what he considers to be an effort to bury political pluralism. Mr. Berisha considers the Prime Minister to be anti-Albanian, especially against the people from the north, and emphasized that the citizens will give him what he deserves, declaring, "You have undertaken to bury the political pluralism. If you have any reasoning left, I call on you to give up from this undertaking. I invite you to stay in your window on May 13th. I guarantee you that the process will be peaceful. We are determined to hold a peaceful protest. The protesters' tent will look like Everest Mountain to you, and you will be terrified each time you look at it. I call on all Albanians from Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, and Montenegro to join the May 13th protest in Tirane, the biggest protest in defense of pluralism." The former Prime Minister said that the current Prime Minister is terrified by the opposition's protest, and for this reason, he has ordered his officials to organize picnics with the aim to attract the youth and not to allow them to participate in the opposition's protest on May 13th. Ambassador to Albania, Donald Lu, the Ambassador of the European Union, Romana Vlahutin, and the OSCE Ambassador, Bernd Borchardt, held a meeting with the Minister of Interior today. The meeting of the ambassadors with the Ministry of Interior lasted about 30 minutes. The focus of the meeting is thought to be the political situation and the opposition's protest on May 13th. Recently, the internationals are highly engaged finding a solution for the political impasse. The President of the Republic, Bujar Nishani, is on an official visit to Kosovo, where he held meetings with political leaders. First, Mr. Nishani was received by his Kosovar counterpart, with whom he discussed the problems of Albanians. The two representatives discussed the recent political developments in both countries, emphasizing the need of political maturity. President Nishani declared that he will not stop his efforts to help the political parties reach compromise in function of guaranteeing the rule of law and advancement of the process of European integration. President Nishani stressed that Europe is the only alternative for all Albanian people wherever they are, and that the politicians cannot hold back the integration process. Meanwhile, the Kosovar president spoke of visas liberalization for Kosovo, saying that Kosovo has fulfilled all of its obligations and that the liberalization has not happened because of European bureaucracies. The Albanian president was awarded with the title the Order of Freedom by his Kosovar counterpart. The International Monetary Fund confirms, through the latest projection report released by Washington's Central Office, that the political situation in Albania in the first month of this election year have not affected the country's economy. The International Monetary Fund, in its report, has analyzed the economy of 22 Central and Eastern European countries, and the forecast for Albania remains unchanged. The IMF predicts that Albanian economic growth will remain at 3.7% during 2017, and in 2018, it will go to 4.1%. Exports will be at 3.2% in 2017 and 4.5% in 2018. Private consumption will increase to 3.6% in 2017, and in 2018, it will reach almost 4%. Albania is identified as the country with the fastest economic growth in the region of 22 countries, after Romania, Bulgaria, and Croatia. Meanwhile, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Macedonia, and Serbia are listed after Albania regarding the economic growth. According to the IMF, the total of external debt to the GDP during 2017 will remain at 48.4%, and in 2018 it will decrease to just 47%. The IMF predicts that the Albanian government will manage to reduce the public debt during 2017 to 68.6% and to 64.8% next year. It is noted that the public debt in 2016 was 72.7%, meaning the level of loans is gradually recovering, and defaulted loans have fallen sharply in the countries of Northern and Southeastern Europe. Non-performing loans remain at a high level in the countries of Northern and Southeastern Europe following the crisis that the economies of these countries suffered, compared with the market. In this region, lending growth is accelerating, driven by lending to people, while lending to businesses remains stagnant. Such a trend is seen in Albania, Macedonia, and Serbia, while credit growth has slowed down in Turkey and contraction continues in Russia. In a meeting with the Women's Movement for Integration, the President-elect Ilir Meta declared that the political situation in Albania has a negative impact on the development of tourism. According to Mr. Meta, the citizens are the ones who are suffering the cost of the tense political climate. Mr. Meta said that many foreign people have canceled their visit to Albania because of the political climate, stating, "Yesterday, I held a meeting with the director of a tourist agency. He told me with great concern, what is happening? I had 7 groups of tourists from Spain who had made early reservations to visit Albania during the tourist season, and 6 groups canceled the reservations." Mr. Meta added that this is a very serious concern, as it does not have only to do with tourism. According to Mr. Meta, the political climate is also affecting investments. For this reason, President-elect asked for a solution of such a situation. The Minister of Integration, Klaida Josha, and the Socialist Movement for Integration MP, Kedi Mehmati, also participated in the meeting. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Cosmo K, and on behalf of OR News, thank you and good night.